Week 14, we got a couple of games on Monday Night Football, but the bulk of the schedule is in the books, and the playoff races are heating up. We're breaking it all down today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
Joe, happy Victory Monday to those of us who are observing. There's a couple fan bases, two extra fan bases than your normal week that don't know if they're celebrating Victory Monday or not, because we have two Monday Night Football games happening concurrently tonight. But week 14 was a weird one, and a lot of entertaining games. I don't know what you had a chance to watch. Obviously, you watched Buffalo, Kansas City. Sure, you caught some of Philadelphia, Dallas, but before that, did you get a chance to watch anything?
Oh, of course. Dialed in on the 1 o'clock slate.
Yeah, Saints, Panthers,
I wasn't super focused on Saints and Panthers, although the passing numbers in that game were something to behold as they were moving along. And, Bryce Young can't complete passes. Derek Carr, not too much better himself. It was not a fun.
It seemed like Derek could complete them, but they were all
not
just
for many yards.
For 1 yard. Yeah.
That's the game we're getting into.
I wanted to check that box as quickly as possible so we can talk about some other games.
Yeah, we can move past that. Dialed in on the 1 o'clock slate. Obviously, watching these playoff races that are becoming very, very, very tight. You got the AFC where the division leaders kind of close, right? But then you have this dynamic of the 6 through 11 seeds are all 7-6. And you saw some pretty significant things happen within there, with the Jets being able to beat the Houston Texans, Denver getting a big win over the Chargers, the Bengals finding a big win. So Bills beating the Chiefs. A big day for the AFC playoff picture that is getting tighter and tighter as you move along throughout the course of the season. But in that early slate, it felt like the most significant thing was Houston getting shellacked by the Jets, man. Was it 30-6 was the score of that game?
30-6. You know what stood out to me about that game? Houston, we talked about how much talent they have as a young team. They look like a young team on the road against a bad football team, right? They came in 7-5, playing the Jets, the lowly Jets. It's cold. It's wet. They looked inexperienced. And you got about like halfway through the third quarter, and I'm watching this game. It's like they don't even look like they want to be out there. Like there was just this, I guess, lack of urgency that it felt like they played with, that I thought really just kind of highlighted an inexperienced football team. And that's okay. It's going to happen. But this is a hard loss to take now.
Yeah, you're looking at 2 of your losses being the Jets and the Panthers, right? And a couple of thoughts here on Houston. Weird how everybody wanted to give C.J. Stroud the NFL MVP after like week 10, right? Play them all.
Hope he's
all right. That's been my.
That was a really nasty.
I do, and that wasn't being trying not to be sensitive towards that situation, but like, you got to let things play out, people. Like, how are we ever going to learn? Are we ever going to learn? And
No.
that was been my thing about Houston in terms of their staying power, right? Where they were hot, obviously, and some big come from behind wins and doing some really good things. And obviously, they do have injuries. Nico Collins couldn't finish this game. Tank Dell not available. So I certainly understand that. But my thought with Houston was always, like you said there, it's a young team. I don't expect them to just go do all the things that they're supposed to do. This is some of what the paying your dues, the things that you have to do as a in your glow up as a team is. I feel like you kind of have to learn these lessons. And yeah, I think they're going to look back on this season. And we look at, they got the Titans, Browns, Titans again, and Colts to close this thing out. I think they're going to look back at losses to the Falcons, losses to the Panthers, losses to the Jets, and realize that, you know what, that's going to help you in the future, but it's going to hurt you this year.
Tell you who should feel pretty good about themselves right now is the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, big time.
That's a football team that had the big bounce back. They had their 5-game winning streak snapped, but they're now 6-1 in their last 7. Is that draft you
with that lost to Houston of all teams, right? Heck of a segue.
Then they got at Detroit, and we'll talk about Detroit a little later in the show, but they don't look good right now.
Right.
New England Chargers, presumably without Justin Herbert. He's got a fracture on a finger on his throwing hand. He left that game after like 12 attempts, and then Las Vegas to close the season. If I'm Denver, I'm feeling really good about my chances right now. And that Chargers, that getting that first Chargers game being the one on the road is huge. And Los Angeles never really had anything going, whether it was Herbert or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and you wonder about the division, right? A little bit, not much though. I mean, with Kansas City losing three of their last 4 games, like they're going to get in it somehow here. But the remaining schedule, the Chiefs' remaining schedule is Patriots, Raiders, Bengals, and Chargers. So like, pretty clear path. But if they lose one of those games and Denver wins all of them, the AFC, that they're going to have tie records. It's going to come down to tiebreakers within the division. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, Denver, whether it's feeling like they can claim one of those 3 wild card spots, having significant tiebreakers, right? They have the tiebreaker over the Bills. Let me see what other key tiebreakers they have. I'm sure they beat the Browns, which is a huge tiebreaker to have. And, they get a chance, like you mentioned, to have a pretty soft schedule the rest of the way. They don't have the tiebreaker over Houston, but yeah, if you're Denver, you're feeling good about the wild card and being a team that's playing reasonable football amongst that field.
Yeah.
Or hey, if the Chiefs have another hiccup, which they very well might, like they have not played great football. Like the story has like given the benefit of the doubt. We got like 13 games in the books and it's still a very inconsistent football team. So yeah, Denver is definitely a team here. Stands out to me as one that has to feel good in a very muddy situation here in the AFC.
So I don't know how good this team would feel. They probably feel really good winning their last 2 football games. But what stands out to me as I look at like what's left is Cincinnati's going to decide a lot because they play everybody.
Yeah.
Right? They played Jacksonville. They beat them. They played Indianapolis. They beat them. They get Minnesota this week. Okay. Then you're at Pittsburgh, at Kansas City versus Cleveland. Cincinnati's going to have a chance to have a direct hand in a lot of what this wild card playoff looks like. And they lost versus Pittsburgh earlier this year. They lost at Baltimore both times. So there's not big picture conversation. If they do get hot and run the table, then I don't imagine that they would. But that's just a team. As I sat down and I actually did this, Joe. I looked at the teams that were 5 through 11 and the games that they were playing against each other. That was left.
It all happens. Yeah.
And Cincinnati's got all of them. Indy, that's a dub. It's in the books. Now, Cleveland and Houston still play each other head-to-head as well at this stage. Pittsburgh still plays Indy. Houston plays Indy. But Cincinnati's the team that's going to really shake this up a lot just because they're going to have a direct hand in who's getting wins and who's getting losses.
Yeah. And sitting here with tiebreakers over Buffalo, Jacksonville, and Indianapolis are those Cincinnati Bengals led by Jake Browning, very much alive here in the AFC playoff picture. We're going to keep this conversation rolling, so stick with us. But I got to tell you about DoorDash, folks. I am obsessed. The convenience, simply unmatched. We're all busy, right? And, Kyle, I know you got a little travel coming up here today. I'm sure there's going to be a DoorDash order in your future because who's got time? Who's got time to make dinner? Who has time to even go out to eat sometimes? Well, use DoorDash. They'll bring you dinner right to your front door. They'll bring you groceries right to your front door. They save you time. I mean, what can be more valuable than that? So stop worrying about when you're going to have time to go to the grocery store. Stop worrying about what's for dinner. Let DoorDash handle that for you. Got a deal here. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. You download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23, subject to change. Terms apply. Again, that's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23, subject to change. Terms apply.
Maybe we should have led with this, but we didn't. So I'll do it now. The AFC playoff picture as things currently stand. The Baltimore Ravens at 10-3 would have the bye. The 2 seed is the 9-3 Miami Dolphins. They play the Tennessee Titans tonight. As Joe, you alluded to, I'm getting on a plane here in a few hours, and I'll be there for the game. Kansas City at 8-5 is the 3 seed. Jacksonville at 8-5 is the 4 seed. Jacksonville would be hosting the 8-5 Cleveland Browns. The Browns clearing the rest of the AFC wildcard picture by a game, thanks to a big win. The 7-6 Pittsburgh Steelers would currently be the 6th seed, and the 7-6 Indianapolis Colts would currently be the 7th seed.
You want to talk a little Kansas City here? The losers of 3 of the last 4. Patrick Mahomes
having the worst day of his life. Never
has anybody ever seen him act like that
in his life? Apparently.
Yeah. Well, they wanted the referees to not call that penalty. That's what they wanted to get away with the penalty.
They took
That's
greatness
what they wanted.
away, Joe. They just took greatness away, just like that.
Right. Watch the play at the snap. The flag's thrown. I'm sitting here as a Bills fan thinking, "Oh crap, this is a free play for Patrick Mahomes. The Bills are offsides." No, Kadarius Toney was, and it was egregious. And so I know that's what the Chiefs are certainly making that the story, especially with even how Andy Reid was post game. But I don't know. Like I think the Chiefs' problems have continued to be the Chiefs' problems: drop passes, miscommunications in the passing game, inconsistent ability to lean on the rushing attack. Obviously, not having Pacheco was a big deal for that game, but like they're not a clean offensive team.
Joe, the problem with Kansas City offense is their wide receiver room is not good enough. You can call it what it is. Well, because it
I hear you.
Into everything.
There's no question, but
trickles in everything.
There's plays there to be made. They lead the league in drops. I mean, how many times is it?
That's still the wide receiver room is not good enough. Because they're dropping balls.
Understood, but just execute the plays.
But when you're not good,
catch the ball when it's thrown to you. Understood, but like you have to look at the opportunity. There's plays to be made, and look, they got to make the plays, man. They got to make the plays.
Well, they're not right now.
Their lack of execution has been all season long.
Pretty safe to say Kansas City will not be the 1 seed.
Oh, yeah, that's highly unlikely. I think Miami's not going to get the 5 losses. Is Baltimore going to get the 5 losses? Probably not.
You don't think Miami's going to get the 5? They got Dallas, Buffalo, and Baltimore. Their last 3 games.
We'll see.
I'll feel a little bit more confident in your outlook if they take care of business the way they're supposed to the next 2 weeks. But I'm a little rattled right now because this was chaos week. And hopefully Miami just sat back and watched Baltimore need overtime to beat the Rams and watch the Chiefs lose to the 6-6 Bills and watch the Jaguars lose to the Joe Flacco-led Cleveland Browns and watch what other losses happened that were just Houston going to New York and losing by 24 points.
The Steelers.
Detroit going into Chicago and getting waxed. Pittsburgh losing to the 2-10 New England Patriots this week.
After losing to the Cardinals the week before, both at home.
Right. And records didn't mean a lot for a lot of teams this week, including a lot of teams that had playoff leverage that was at their disposal to go out and take care of business and beat a team that was not as good as them in the win-loss column, and it didn't happen.
Right, and that's you and I spent a lot of time in the offseason picking games, and we always were like, well, it doesn't always just go the way it's supposed to go, right? It just doesn't. And so you got to play them. You picked up a couple games. Did you get both of the games we were different on this week?
Games. Yeah.
Oh, that's a killer for me. And, well, I just thought of it, and then because I was just reminded that I wanted to pick the Jets. I was just reminded there was another one that I wanted to pick that it's escaping me right now. I thought about the Panthers. Thank God I didn't do that. That would have been terrible. What was the other game?
Would have been a bad way to go down.
Yeah, that was not great.
The
Bears? It was the Bears. I thought about the Bears. So we're gonna see. I'm gonna have to open it up a little bit here over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, we talked about how that Bears that line felt weird. Detroit -3 home. We're like, really? Isn't that an overreaction to the last time we saw Chicago was when they gave up like 10 points on Monday Night Football to Minnesota, and turns out it wasn't. Or maybe it was, and Detroit's just falling apart at the seams here. I don't know. They're in trouble.
Yeah, so if we want to transition to the NFC side of things and get into the Lions, this is kind of the concern with this Lions team last year, where it's just not very good away from home, right? Like outside, having to play in, not that there was like weather or whatever, but like they're just not the same at home, and they're gonna have to go to Minnesota against that aggressive Brian Flores defense, go to the Cowboys and to the Vikings. So like their next 3 games are on the road after they play Denver. So I didn't get that. They to the Vikings and to Dallas. So 2 of their next 3 are on the road. And they play the pesky Broncos next. Is that a Thursday night game?
That's a Saturday night game too. It's a short week.
Saturday night. Yeah, it's a short week. I don't know that they're going to – are they going to stumble enough to allow Green Bay back into this divisional conversation? But, like, they're not playing their best football at the right time, clearly.
Right. And even I know we talked about the defensive regression, and there's some separation in this conference that's taking place with now San Francisco and Dallas as divisional leaders with 10 wins. So Detroit runs the risk of falling off the pace of that a little bit. Now, they don't have to worry about getting caught by the 4 seed, because that's currently the 6-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because one of the games that I picked up was the most NFC South thing that could possibly happen was what happened, which is Atlanta.
My good friend Young Wei Koo
perpetually shoot themselves in the foot. Tampa Bay now leads that division. Just a quick rundown through the NFC playoff picture as things currently stand. San Francisco is the 1 seed. They own wins over both of the other 2 10-win teams in the conference. So San Francisco feeling really good about their leveraging. Dallas is currently the 2 seed at 10-3. Detroit, the 3 seed at 9-4. Tampa Bay, the 4 seed at 6-7. Philadelphia, the 5 seed at 10-3. The Minnesota Vikings, currently the 6 seed at 7-6. And the Green Bay Packers at 6-6. They play tonight, are currently the 7 seed.
I think we should start at the top here of this conference. Dallas, huge, big time win over Philadelphia. And Philadelphia now 2 very lopsided losses to the Cowboys and Niners in back-to-back weeks. They survived the Bills and Chiefs the previous 2 weeks, but those are losses that you wonder about, right? You wonder, okay, is Philly in the same category as those other teams, or like, are they inevitably going to play later in the season, right, in the playoffs, and perhaps this experience helps them in round 2 or round 3 against Dallas? But when you consider the big 3 in the NFC, you have to feel like Philadelphia is 3, like firmly 3. Defensively, they're not very good.
Yeah, they are struggling on both sides of the ball right now, too, to have any rhythm. And Jalen Hurts looks out of whack. Defensively, I think their second level is a challenge. Obviously, that was highlighted by what San Francisco was able to do to them last week. Now, they have digestible games left on the schedule, and Dallas has a really tough 2-game road gauntlet right now that's coming up now. I mean, Philly finishes at Seattle. Maybe a desperate Seattle team could tag you for 3 losses in a row, and then they're
Played 49ers
Giants
a little tighter
twice
than we
in
thought.
Arizona. Giants twice in Arizona.
Okay.
So
they're going to be okay, though.
they'll be fine. I mean, Dallas, what's interesting, Dallas, they're currently 10-3. Their next 2 at Buffalo, at Miami. Joe, their road wins this year. You know what they look like?
Hmm.
I don't have the week. It was November 19th at Carolina. It was a road win. We have Monday Night Football against the Chargers on October 16th. And week 1 at New York Giants. Those are the 3 road wins the Dallas Cowboys have currently accumulated this season.
What is it? I mean, their strength of victory this year is still under 40%, right? It's a 397 or something. So they've got.
Yeah, I think that the talking point about beating good teams goes away for Dallas, or at least it should. I want to sit here and bemoan it. We can, but they don't travel particularly well. They have not traveled particularly well. So that's the thing for Dallas the next 2 weeks. And then their reward after that is to come home and play Detroit, who will be very motivated for that game because they will obviously be seeding on the line for that contest.
And I think it's a big deal to be the 2 versus the 3 in the NFC. You want to be able you're going to win your wild card game, presumably. Then you want to host in the divisional round. So yeah, I think that's a big deal.
Especially in this division set up too, or with this playoff field. I think it'll be really important to home field advantage as much as anything else, as it always is. So,
all right, we're going to get deeper into this NFC playoff picture. The wild card race is heating up. But, folks, you got to check out PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the funnest, most exciting, easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. The format's incredible. It's just you against numbers. It's not you against thousands of other players, including pros and including sharks. Here's what you do. You select 2 or more players. You pick more or less in their projected stats, and you place your entry. It doesn't take long to make an entry. And then when you win, withdrawals are super, super quick, and you can make an entry in under a minute. You can cross-pollinate with PrizePicks. That's one of my favorite things. Like tonight, there's a couple of NFL games. You can pick some stuff you like there in terms of projected stats, and then mix that with a basketball game and a hockey game, and really find an entry that you love. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
I think the thing that best embodies the NFC playoff race as compared to the AFC playoff race, where we went through everybody being 7-6. These were the NFC fringe playoff teams that entered this weekend at 6-6. The Atlanta Falcons, the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams. They all lost.
Yep.
So, little different vibe than the AFC just gauntlet of teams that are hot or are coming on hot. The Rams put a really good effort forward against Baltimore. Felt for them there at the end of the game. They weird sequence. How much of that game did you catch?
Some, yeah, decent amount.
So they have to burn a timeout at the end of regulation. The Rams do, because the helmet went out for Stafford, so that they couldn't get the play call in after like a big play. And then they end up just like their last 2 shots are just effectively shots into the end zone because they lost a timeout. And then they get to overtime, and they have a 3rd down and short, and they take a delayed game, and then they have to punt. And Baltimore runs the punt back. So communication issues for the Rams late in that game really, quite frankly, bailed out Harbaugh. Do you see Harbaugh challenge that touchdown?
Yeah. Silly, right?
Cost of they got charged for timeout. You can't challenge scores because all scoring plays are already automatically reviewed.
Right.
What did he challenge?
Right.
What was the point of contestation with the play?
You see a lot though. Like, isn't it funny how many goofy moments there are like that with these coaches?
Right.
It just happens. Unfortunately, it's crazy to me. But the Rams,
of the teams that lost, I think the Rams obviously put their best foot forward and had an unfortunate near miss against Baltimore. But the teams have walked into Baltimore and walked out of there feeling a lot worse about themselves. So we'll see what the Rams are able to do, building upon that moving forward.
So your 3 wild cards right now are the Eagles, Vikings, and Packers. The Eagles, congratulations, whatever. One of those NFC East teams is going to be the wild card. And then it's the Vikings who get a 3-0 win over the Raiders. They switch away from Josh Dobbs. So that was a fun story while it lasted. And Nick Mullins now entering the conversation. We'll see if that winds up sticking. But, they get Justin Jefferson back and has a very, kind of a concerning chest injury there. We don't know the details at this point. Kind of interested to see how Minnesota can pull this off. I think they're going to have to rely on a big play defense, right, to complement their offense. And then, Packers got to take care of their business, right? It feels like they're in pretty good shape, but they got Monday night in New York or Jersey tonight against the Giants. So the big one there. And you feel like this is the situation where I think it could stay the way that it is. I think the AFC is going to have some more shakeups here, but the NFC feels a little bit more static.
You missed me with Minnesota making the playoffs.
They just have to hold off the Rams or the Seahawks.
Right. At Cincinnati, Detroit twice, and Green Bay.
That's what Minnesota has the rest of the way.
Vikings' final 4 games.
It's going to be tough for them.
That's going to be a pumpkin. That's going to be a pumpkin.
It's going to be tough for them.
Because
here Kyle's out on the Vikings. Cue up the run. Cue up the run.
As compared to the Rams, who get the Commanders, the New York Giants. They get San Francisco week 18, so everything may be wrapped up for them in that stage. They also get the Saints, and they get the Saints at home on a short week.
It could be 3-1, could be 2-2. We'll see.
Give me the Rams. I'm sure I will not regret that at all. But
Kyle, we get a Levy Grail this week.
The Pats.
The Patriots. Welcome.
Awful win. Welcome.
Yeah. Right, awful win.
Fight on.
Win.
Fight on, my man. Keep fighting on Bill, too.
Stick with him. That's all I got to say. Stick with him. Super Bowl winning coach, man.
All right. That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked On NFL Scouting. You find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. Make it a great Monday. We got 2 Monday Night Football games tonight. Look for me. I'll be in the stands at Miami.
Will you be the guy in the Dolphin shirt? Will that be you?
Yeah.
Is that how we'll know?
Oh, okay. So you'll know me when you see me. And we will be back tomorrow to do the Levy Grill. Is that the plan for tomorrow, is to do the Levy Grill for the Pats?
So whatever the funeral, we'll do the autopsy, the whole thing, right? So we got to get that in. We might as well do it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we'll have a good time with that. So come on back and see us. Thanks for checking out the show, guys.